Andrew Destin, he works for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. He is there at the All-Star Game in Dallas. He's going to join us on the Fan Hotline presented by Sullivan Super Service, providing trusted plumbing and HVAC service for over 50 years, as he talked to a whole bunch of AL stars to get their thoughts on Paul Skeens, but we don't yet have him at this point. You can text us, brought to you by Egger, Snyder & Associates, a personal injury law firm, and they always say there's never a fee unless we get money for you. You can tweet us, brought to you by South Hills Kia in Peters Township. Visit them at southhillskia.net. Over under 5 minutes of conversation in the run-up about Paul Skeens and his warm-up routine. They're going to spend a lot of time on that, I think.
Over, yeah.
Just a ton of time.
I think that they're going to dedicate like a half hour before the game just to him.
Yes, I agree.
And it's going to be everything. It's going to be they're going to show college clips. They're going to show even him maybe, you know what, there's one. We should have did an odds and ends today, but I think they're going to show one of him at the plate hitting, of saying, like, look how versatile he was in college. Like, he can actually hit the ball, too. We maybe see this maybe later on in his career, maybe not, but he is just such a phenom. Look how he warms up. He's throwing a football, and I think they go into everything that has led to him to this point.
It's going to be like porn for Pirates fans.
Yep.
It really is. And I think it'll be like you said, the half-hour lead-up, and it takes forever for them to announce the teams, too. But aside from that, the run-up is going to be all Skeens, and then if he does what we all think he can do, they're probably going to interview him during the game, and it's just going to be a total Skeens fest. We are joined right now by Andrew Destin, Pirates beat writer for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, his maiden voyage here on the Fan Morning Show. Good morning to you, Andrew. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Yeah, me guys. Thanks for having me, Adam and Doran. It's a pleasure to meet you guys over the Zoom or whatever you want to call it here from Texas. I'm glad I'm in the AC for right now, and I'm sure Paul will feel the same way when he's pitching here tonight.
First of all, I didn't know what you look like, so
Me neither.
Hi, nice to meet you, Andrew Destin. We're not going to call you Destiny's Child or anything like that. So you canvassed a bunch of these AL stars. What did you take away from your conversations with those guys and what they had to say about Skeens?
Yeah, I mean, I think my biggest takeaway, first off, was chatting with Aaron Judge. The onus is going to fall on the three guys ahead of him. Somebody's going to have to get on base for him to get his shot, and I think he wasn't terribly shy about saying as much, which, you know, you can point to Major League Baseball or whoever it is for him being in the 4-hole instead of batting 3 or 2 or something like that. But, you know, I think the biggest takeaway was just, hey, these guys are all excited to face him. Nobody in that top 3 has ever faced him. Juan Soto was talking about the fastball. Stephen Kwan was talking about, hey, you know, maybe I have to take one for the team, get hit by a pitch, jump in front of it. So it was just it was funny. It was serious. It was guys who are curious. It was every emotion. It felt like that, you know, a pro athlete should have about facing a guy who's arguably the best pitcher in the world right now.
Do you get the feeling that he's garnered the respect of the highest of the highs players in Major League Baseball from being around some of these guys, talking to some of these guys? Do you think that he's garnered that initial respect of being who he is and being in the All-Star Game? Paul Skeens, who I'm talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, honestly, it dates before that. I mean, Gunnar Henderson had a great quote where he was like, yeah, I mean, I don't have a great scouting report on the guy, but I don't need to. I've seen him on MLB Network every day the last 2 weeks. Like, these guys they're already amply aware of who he is. But the respect is certainly there. Bryce Harper said as much to me when I was asking him. He was like, yeah, I hope that I see him. We face off against each other for the next 10 to 15 years. You know, Aaron Judge said, this isn't going to be, you know, it's cool that I might get to face him in his first start in an All-Star game, but he's probably going to get multiple of them, right? So these guys, they certainly already have gained a lot of respect for him, and I think it would be hard not to. I think maybe this is just me speculating, but I think part of it, too, is the way that he's carried himself, right? Like, somebody could come in, and I'm not saying that this is, you know, some big epidemic in other sports, but it'd be really easy for a guy to come in and say, hey, this is easy. You know, I can throw 102 miles an hour. I can strike everybody out. I have a sub-2 ERA. This is really easy. Everything's coming easy to me. And, you know, Skeens does not handle himself like that. And I think in a sport like baseball especially, where you're trying to toe that line between, you know, growing the game, advancing it, trying to get out of those traditions, but also still being rooted in this is how things are done and respect for your elders and respect for how the game has been played. I think Skeens has done a tremendous job of towing that line, and I think that's not lost on his contemporaries.
I am paraphrasing here, but I heard Greg Brown interview Skeens after he was pulled from that no-hitter. And he said, are you thinking about the All-Star Game? Are you excited about the All-Star Game? And again, paraphrasing, Skeen said something along the lines of, I'm just thinking about how to improve for my next start. And he says it in a way where you believe him. Andrew Destin of the Post-Gazette, Pirates beat writer, joining us here on the Fan Morning Show. He's live at the MLB All-Star Game. Have you noticed Skeens at all? Because you've been around him here in Pittsburgh. Have you noticed him? Is he smiling? Is he showing any more effervescence? Like, how is Paul Skeens, in your opinion, taking all of this in?
I think that's exactly it. It's taking all of it in. It's coming up to the podium at Globe Life Field, and he's kind of looking around, looks up to the left, to the right, taking it all in, chatting it up with guys. One thing that I noticed, I was trying my best to keep eyes on him during the home run derby is, he's sitting there chatting it up with Tyler Glass now. He's bouncing around, talking to different pitchers. One thing that he said was going to be what he was most curious about, and I think to your guys' point about him being serious about, hey, I'm looking forward to the next start. He was really curious about, hey, I want to learn from these other pitchers. I want to pick the brains of some of the best guys in the business who have stuck around for a long time. Those were not, false words just based on seeing him chatting up with Glass now and some of these other guys. So I think that's really serious to him. I think he viewed this. It's kind of funny. I almost said this to one of my parents. I was like, yeah, it's kind of like a guy taking advantage of a networking event where you're just kind of bouncing around, learning from different people. Not that Paul Skeens necessarily needs to, but hey, it's a setting where you're around some of the most talented players in the game. This is a guy who doesn't want to be the next Dwight Gooden, where you have a tremendous start to your career and then it falls off after 5 or 6 years because the velocity trickles down or something like that. Like, this guy wants to be great. He wants to stay consistent. He wants to stay elite. And I think the process is there. I think he certainly has taken that very seriously.
Well, let's get your prediction, Andrew. How do you think this first inning is going to go for our guy, Paul Skeens? How do you see it panning out for him after this first inning tonight is over?
Ooh, put me on the spot. I think we're going to see him face Aaron Judge. I think somebody's going to get aboard, whether that's a walk, whether that's a flare to the opposite field from Stephen Kwan or Gunnar Henderson or something like that. Like, Juan Soto obviously is excellent. He draws a million walks. I think one of those guys gets on, and then Judge comes up. We get the big made-for-TV moment that we're all looking for. There, it's a little bit out of my hands, but I would say that Judge comes up with somebody on, 2 out, and I'll say that he flies out to deep left field. I think that's how we see this one go, and that's the first inning. So that's my bold prediction, if you want to call it that.
Not to stray too far from the All-Star Game here, but Pirates are at 500. They are a game and a half now out of a playoff spot, and the trade deadline is fast approaching. Do you think they'll get something done between now and the trade deadline, and what might that look like in your eyes?
It's interesting, Adam, because since the last time I was asked this question, a lot has changed. They swept the White Sox. They took 2 out of 3 from the Brewers. And before that, I was pretty steadfast about what I had been hearing and what I've been talking about with people around the industry of, Aroldis Chapman would be a prime candidate to be moved if they were 5 or 6 games under 500 going into the deadline. If they keep this up, I see no way that they don't add. That being said, is it probably going to be some smaller moves? Yeah, for sure. I mean, some guys that personally, if I'm, creating a Christmas wish list, I would look at a guy like Tommy Pham on a short rental deal would be a nice outfielder that you could plug in there. I know he's kind of a mercurial guy with the background with fantasy football and all that stuff, but he would make a good deal of sense in the outfield there. I wouldn't be surprised if they could pursue a corner infielder, somebody who could complement what Rowdy Tellez has done, who could give Brian Hayes, a day or two. As much as Jared Triolo is a plus defender, I'd think they could pursue a corner infielder. But the biggest need for me is an outfield bat. I think the starting pitching is going to be in an okay spot, even with Jones being out for as long as until August or September. So I don't know. I view it as, hey, go get an outfield bat if you want. Do not mortgage your future. This team is 500. I personally don't believe it as a true serious World Series threat. There's 3 teams in the National League that are, in the Brewers, the Dodgers, and the Phillies. So go for it, by all means, add, but don't do anything like give up a Bubba Chandler, give up another one of your top prospects. To me, that has to be non-negotiable unless it's a player who you have 2-3 years of club control that becomes a new club cornerstone for you, whoever that may be.
Andrew Destin.
There he is.
Very good.
Yes,
That's
sir.
a good performance your first time. We appreciate you coming on. Enjoy yourself tonight, man. I mean, this has got to be really cool for you, too. And with the Pirates really being at the epicenter of the baseball universe, which means you are at the epicenter of the baseball universe. Thank you for spending some time with us today. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you all having me.
Take care.
Thanks, Andrew.
Andrew Destin.
There he goes.
Nice young man.
Yes, he is.